Alright, bro, here we go. This one's gonna hit deep. No sugarcoating. Just raw dark truth straight up in that American docu narration vibe. Full of emotion and those real street-level expressions that make history hit harder. So picture this. Man, back in the early 1930s, Japan's out here trying to flex like a superpower, taking over Asia like it's some damn board game. Moving from Manchuria to China, down to the Pacific Islands and Southeast Asia, claiming land like it's free real estate. But behind all that glory talk, behind the shiny propaganda posters and that fake honor bowl, there was a nightmare brewing. See, the Japanese military was scared, not of the enemy, but of their own men losing control. They figured if their soldiers didn't get, company, they'd go nuts, lose discipline, start acting wild. So, some genius up in command cooked up this insane idea. Why not make our own system, controlled, organized, for the empire? They called it comfort women. Sounds soft, right? But man, there was nothing comforting about it. It was hell wrapped in silk. At first, they got local Japanese women. Some said they volunteered, but that didn't last long. The army grew, the empire spread, and the demand went off the charts. So they turned to the lands they conquered, Korea, China, the Philippines, Indonesia, Burma, and started snatching young girls like it was just another supply run. They didn't ask, they lied. They sent these so-called recruiters who told poor families, hey, your daughter can work in a factory, earn money, help the empire. Parents, desperate and broke, bought the lie. Those girls never came home, man. They got thrown on trucks, trains, boats. Some were crying, some didn't even know what the hell was happening. And by the time they figured it out, it was too damn late. They ended up in comfort stations, basically military brothels built right next to army camps. Tiny rooms, bamboo walls, no windows, just pain. Every woman got a number, not a name. You could feel the soul leave the place. From sunrise till midnight, soldiers lined up, one after another, sometimes 30 or 40 a day. That's not survival, that's torture on repeat. They couldn't say no. If they cried, they got beat. If they tried to run, they got shot. If they got sick, they got replaced. Some were barely 14, dude. 14. You think about that and your stomach just turns. A woman named Kim Hak-sun, she was the first one to come out and tell her story decades later, said, "We were treated like things, not people." She said she stopped counting after the 10th man every night. Imagine being so broken that pain just becomes background noise. It's beyond messed up. And the soldiers? Man, they were told it was normal. They called those women gifts of the emperor. That's some twisted justification right there. But some of those dudes knew it was wrong. Diaries popped up years later. One soldier wrote, "The girl cried, but I pretended not to hear. The officer said it was normal, but I couldn't sleep that night." That's guilt talk, the kind that eats you alive. Meanwhile, inside those comfort stations, diseases spread like wildfire. Some women got injected with experimental vaccines. Others got sterilized without even knowing it. They were treated like lab rats, bro. Once they got too sick to work, they were tossed out, sometimes executed, sometimes just left to die. No mercy. And when the war started crumbling for Japan, they tried to erase it all, burn the documents, destroyed the proof. But you can't burn memory, man. You can't burn trauma. When the war ended, those women went home, if they even made it. But there was no home waiting for them. Their families, their towns, their whole damn society turned their backs. People called them dirty, dishonored. So they went silent. For decades. Imagine carrying that for 50 years and not being able to speak it out loud. That's a different kind of prison. It wasn't until 1991, 50 freaking years later, that Kim Hak-sun finally broke that silence. She stood up, old but fierce, and said, "I'm not ashamed anymore. They should be ashamed." Damn right she said that. That one voice cracked open the walls of silence. And suddenly the world had to look, had to face the horror that Japan had buried under propaganda and pride. The truth started crawling out, through stories, through tears, through broken voices. And the more the world learned, the uglier it got. Because this wasn't just war, it was a system of human destruction, designed to break women down till they were just tools. And man, history doesn't forget that kind of darkness. It stays. It stains. So yeah, when you hear the word comfort women, don't let the word fool you. It wasn't comfort. It was captivity, pain, and silence wrapped in lies. It was war, not on battlefields, but on bodies. And that's where the first part of this dark, twisted history ends, in the silence that came after the screams stopped, but before justice ever started. To be continued. So, picture this. The war's over, Japan's empire has crumbled, the flags are down, soldiers gone home, and the world's trying to patch itself up. But for those women, those so-called comfort women, the war didn't end, bro. It just changed shape. They came back broken, bodies wrecked, minds shattered, carrying ghosts that never shut up. You'd think they'd be treated like survivors, like heroes who went through hell. But nah, society turned its back, like it never happened. People whispered behind their backs, called them dirty, dishonored, cursed. And those women, they went quiet. Real quiet. Because what do you even say when your own people blame you for the nightmare someone else made you live? For decades, they kept their mouths shut. Decades, man. Whole generations born while these women carried that pain like a shadow that never faded. Meanwhile, Japan? They were out here acting like it was all a bad rumor. The government pretended the whole comfort women thing was just exaggerated. Some even said the women volunteered. Like, come on, bro. You don't volunteer for hell. That's not volunteering. That's surviving a nightmare with no door out. But yeah, they kept denying, deleting files, pretending like history was just gonna fade away if nobody talked about it. Then, boom, 1991 hit. And one old lady changed everything. Kim Hak-sun, the same woman from part 1, stepped up in front of cameras and dropped the truth like a bomb. No shame, no filter, just raw pain turned into power. She said, I was one of them. And I'm not ashamed anymore. That line, man, that shook the world. Suddenly newspapers everywhere started picking it up. Japan, Korea, the US, Europe. People were like, wait, what the hell was this? And that's when the skeletons started crawling out of the empire's closet. Other survivors came forward, trembling voices, shaking hands, but courage like fire. They told stories of nights that never ended, of screams nobody heard, of friends who never came back. And as those stories stacked up, so did the pressure. Protesters hit the streets in Seoul, in Tokyo, in Washington, demanding an apology, demanding justice. Every Wednesday, right outside the Japanese embassy in Seoul, old women, grandmas, bro, would stand with signs, holding flowers, holding photos of girls who didn't make it. Rain, snow, heat, didn't matter. They showed up. Every damn week. They called it the Wednesday demonstration, and it became one of the longest-running protests in history. That's some real grit right there. And Japan? Man, they tried everything to dodge it. They said, there's no official proof. Then they said, it wasn't the government's fault. Then they half apologized, like, we feel sorry, but not responsible. Bro, that's like burning someone's house and then saying, sorry it got hot. In 1993, they finally dropped the Kono statement, admitting, kinda, that the Japanese military was involved. But even then, they danced around the word responsibility, like they were scared to just say, yeah, we did it. 7. Then, boom, 1991 hit. And one old lady changed everything. Kim Hak-sun, the same woman from part 1, stepped up in front of cameras and dropped the truth like a bomb. No shame, no filter, just raw pain turned into power. She said, I was one of them. And I'm not ashamed anymore. That line, man, that shook the world. Suddenly newspapers everywhere started picking it up. Japan, Korea, the US, Europe. People were like, wait, what the hell was this? And that's when the skeletons started crawling out of the empire's closet. Other survivors came forward, trembling voices, shaking hands, but courage like fire. They told stories of nights that never ended, of screams nobody heard, of friends who never came back. And as those stories stacked up, so did the pressure. Protesters hit the streets in Seoul, in Tokyo, in Washington, demanding an apology, demanding justice. Every Wednesday, right outside the Japanese embassy in Seoul, old women, grandmas, bro, would stand with signs, holding flowers, holding photos of girls who didn't make it. Rain, snow, heat, didn't matter. They showed up. Every damn week. They called it the Wednesday demonstration, and it became one of the longest-running protests in history. That's some real grit right there. And Japan? Man, they tried everything to dodge it. They said, there's no official proof. Then they said, it wasn't the government's fault. Then they half apologized, like, we feel sorry, but not responsible. Bro, that's like burning someone's house and then saying, sorry it got hot. In 1993, they finally dropped the Kono statement, admitting, kinda, that the Japanese military was involved. But even then, they danced around the word responsibility, like they were scared to just say, yeah, we did it. Then in the 2000s, stuff got even messier. Some Japanese politicians started saying the comfort women were well-treated, or that it was part of war. Like, dude, part of war? That's like calling torture just bad luck. Every time someone said that, the survivors spoke louder. They weren't young anymore, wrinkled faces, tired eyes, but they had voices sharp enough to cut through lies. They traveled the world, met presidents, spoke in the UN, told their stories to anyone who'd listen. Some cried, some didn't, but all of them carried the same fire. We want truth. We want justice. And man, the world started listening. Artists, filmmakers, writers, they started telling their stories, putting faces to the forgotten. Statues of comfort women went up in cities across the world. Young girl statues sitting on chairs, empty chairs beside them, symbolizing those who never came back. Japan hated those statues, bro. They called them offensive. But those statues? They weren't for hate. They were for memory. For silence that finally found a voice. And then you look at the deeper picture. Man, it ain't just history. It's a reflection. It's what happens when power loses its humanity. Those women weren't soldiers. They weren't rebels. They were daughters, sisters, dreamers. And war turned them into statistics. And now, decades later, their fight ain't about revenge. It's about recognition, about the world saying, yeah, that happened. It was real, and it was wrong. 9. Some survivors passed away before hearing a real apology. Some are still waiting. Every year, fewer of them remain. Their bodies may be weak now, but their stories? Those are unbreakable. Their courage flipped the script, turned victims into warriors of truth. And every time someone tells their story, that silence dies a little more. So yeah, man, when you talk about World War II, don't just talk about bombs and generals. Talk about the girls who never came home. Talk about how power tried to erase them, but they refused to disappear. This isn't just Japan's story, it's humanity's warning. A reminder that when we forget the victims, we risk becoming the monsters all over again. Because the real war never ends with peace treaties. It ends when truth finally wins. And for those women, truth is still fighting, still standing, still speaking through the cracks of history.